This afternoon's top stories. Government's key revenue generators performing according to 2016 budget projections. St. Lucia College heightened security measures after students assaulted. And thousands of Somalis return home from Kenya. Good afternoon. Welcome to the ZIZ Midday Newscast. Today is Monday, the 17th of October 2016. I am Shaira Flanders. Nationally, at Wednesday's 2017 Estimates Committee meeting, Prime Minister Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris said preliminary data shows that the three major revenue earners for the federal government of St. Kitts and Nevis, the Inland Revenue Department, the Customs and Excise Department, and the Citizenship by Investment Program are either moving in line with or slightly ahead of the 2016 budgetary predictions in terms of revenue collection. Dr. Harris, the country's Minister of Finance, thanked the heads of the respective departments for, quote, being able to hold true to their commitments. Regarding the Inland Revenue Department, Prime Minister Harris reported to his cabinet ministers as well as the government officials and other civil service professionals. To date, the figures for 2016 are well on budget, perhaps maybe slightly ahead of their budgetary predictions. Concerning the Customs Department, the Honorable Prime Minister said it is doing a better job at collection this year, again relative to the 2016 budget. Dr. Harris added that, quote, the third support for the government in terms of revenue of note is the CBI investment program, and that is moving in line with the 2016 budget. Minister of State in the Ministry of Health, Community Development, Gender Affairs and Social Services, Honorable Senator Wendy Phipps, said that budget planning is an important exercise to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis in understanding how a government functions in the management of its scarce public resources. She made the statement during an interview session with the St. Kitts Nevis Information Service on Friday.
There are lots of things that we would like to see St. Kitts and Nevis have in terms of improvement in our development. And of course, we have to temper that with the fact that we can do only what we can afford to do.
Minister Phipps said that St. Kitts and Nevis has an economy that is transitioning and developing, and therefore the country does not qualify for aid like it used to.
Yes, it is true. Some may argue and state that St. Kitts and Nevis has good relations with the international community, a lot of donor agencies and so forth, and that all of that is true. But at the same time, what is equally true and must be acknowledged is the fact that while we do have these relationships existing, St. Kitts and Nevis is also an economy in transition.
Minister Phipps said that this means St. Kitts and Nevis would have graduated from low-income country status and is now moving into middle-income developing status. She said the government is working to create a budget that is beneficial for the people.
I think at the end of the day, what we're hoping to come out of this budget with are programs that will benefit the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, and of course largely driven by tax revenue, because everybody knows that your basic understanding of how government operates is that government is able to pay its bills based on the taxes that it is able to collect.
That was Minister of State in the Ministry of Health, the Honorable Wendy Phipps. As activities continue for Financial Information Month 2016, a fun sports meet was held on Saturday, October 15th, featuring 9 financial institutions and 5 schools in St. Kitts. At the end of the highly competitive sports meet, the Bastia High School emerged as the overall champion. TDC Financial Services took the 2nd position, Inland Revenue Department took the 3rd position, and the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank 4th position. Throughout the games, emphasis was placed on promoting messages advocating good money management practices with events like Don't Bite Off More Than You Can Chew, an eating competition, Soar to Succeed, a jumping competition, Chase Your Financial Dreams, the 100-meter dash race to financial freedom, a relay race, and Protect Your Assets, a diaper dash. Other institutions that competed in the games were CIBC First Caribbean International Bank, Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, Financial Services Regulatory Commission, NAGICO, National Caribbean Insurance, Royal Bank of Canada, Scotiabank, Keon High School, Charles E. Mills Secondary School, the Sadler's Secondary School, and the Washington Archibald High School.
Hi, I'm Carla Burridge. Join me weekdays at 7 p.m. for Zeliza's evening newscast. We'll let you know what's happening in your community.
And onto the regional scene. Recently in St. Lucia, a safety and security meeting was held with parents at St. Mary's College after two groups of students were robbed and assaulted. The meeting was to address security measures going forward to ensure the safety of the students. DBS's Kendall Burton has that story.
Principal Rowan Sion says he was pleasantly surprised by the large turnout for Wednesday evening's meeting. In spite of the short notice, in excess of 500 parents are estimated to have shown up for that meeting. The meeting featured several presentations from various speakers, including the police, the acting chairman of the school board, and a representative of a committee of teachers that has since been formed as a result of the recent incidents to deal with school security.
It went well in the sense that parents were satisfied that they know exactly what's going on, because, you know, it's been happening, 3 incidents now, and parents have been hearing it over the media, really. So we thought it was only fitting that we call them into the school to get it directly from us so they can ask questions directly. And quite a few questions were asked. Some made points of their own. Some expressed their feeling. One or two you can see are very passionate about what is going on. There was one gentleman who's a past student who seemed to be as angry as anybody else about what's happening.
The principal says he's extremely appreciative of the support shown by the public and for the media keeping the SMC robberies in the spotlight. He says he came out of last night's meeting satisfied that a lot had been accomplished and that very concrete solutions had been identified. The Ministry of Education, meanwhile, is reportedly playing its part.
Just before I went in, I spoke to another gentleman who's part of the ministry's security personnel, and he's telling me that there's going to be I want to use the word task force of special police officers who have been set aside to deal with these threats. Because, you know, there have been break-ins at other schools as well. It's not just St. Mary's College. This is now, I guess, the straw that's going to break the back of the camel of the whole thing.
Mr. Sion says while a lot of attention has been focused on St. Mary's College, several other schools have fallen victim to bandits over the last several weeks. He's hoping that a permanent solution can be found to address security deficiencies at all of these schools. The Ministry of Education has given its commitment to doing so.
These are malicious acts and acts that we will not allow, and we will do whatever that is required with the cooperation of the police, with the cooperation of government, with the cooperation of the corporate sector, to ensure that our institutions are safe.
The ministry is reportedly giving consideration to a number of recommendations, including the training of security personnel. Some of these will likely mean additional costs for the government, but the ministry says students' and teachers' safety is far too important to leave to chance. For the DBS News World, Kendall Burton reporting.
A policy intended to transform and empower young people was approved at the last sitting of the National Assembly in Guyana. That policy is the long overdue National Youth Policy. We hear more from HGP's Handel Duncan.
The National Youth Policy is an outline of the Ghana government's agenda and priorities for young people up to the age of 35. It is one which outlines a commitment to improve the situation of young people in a manner that is inclusive and sustained. The policy, after a lengthy debate in the National Assembly Thursday evening, was adopted. But before the adoption of the policy, some PPPC parliamentarians argued that the policy had not fully taken into consideration the peculiar challenges facing indigenous youths. The opposition side of the House presented a case to have the policy further scrutinized by a parliamentary select committee. The government disagreed with that proposition. The development of the National Youth Policy reportedly began under the tenure of the PPPC administration. Here is former Minister of Culture, Youth and Sport, Dr. Frank Anthony.
There is a vast difference between what was done using the 3,000 questionnaires, what was done with a focus group discussion, and what we have before us today. There was a vast difference. The priorities that were identified were now, some of them are ignored in this current draft of the policy. So where are we going? The voices of the young people, when we went out there and from them the information that we need to craft the policy. That is ignored now in this document. So something is wrong. Something is wrong with our approach.
Minister with Responsibility for Youth, Nicolette Henry, emphasized that the policy is linked to the empowerment of young people as individuals and Guyanese citizens through life skills, development support, enabling environment, arts, sports, culture, and volunteerism.
Furthermore, it seeks to create an enabling environment for the reduction of youth unemployment through self-employment, entrepreneurship, and demand-driven education and training. This policy, Mr. Speaker, aims to develop an effective and dynamic national system of formal and informal education that is accessible by all young people.
Minister Henry further stated that young people can claim ownership of the National Youth Policy,
as it was built with their input, knowledge, and experiences, and takes into account contributions at the local, regional, and international levels.
The minister reaffirmed in her closing arguments that the policy speaks to all ethnic groups and addresses the youths of Guyana, as she debunked the opposition's arguments. Handel Duncan, GP Nightly News.
And on the international scene, the battle for Mosul is on the way as Iraqi forces move to reclaim the city from the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant ISIL group. More than 2 years ago, ISIL fighters took control of Mosul from the Iraqi government. The U.S., which is helping with the operation, has expressed confidence in the mission. Here's more.
As day broke, the ground advance began. Peshmerga forces, along with the Iraqi army, are taking the lead in the offensive. It was under the cover of darkness when they took up positions around the ISIL-controlled city. The much-awaited battle to recapture Mosul has started.
The time of victory has come, and hereby we announce the start of the offensive to retake the city of Mosul. We announce the start of the heroic operations to liberate you from the tyranny and the brutality of ISIL.
The U.S.-led coalition is providing cover from the sky, but U.S. troops are on the ground as well. Here, their role is advisory, but under the battle rules, they could accompany troops and be placed closer to direct combat.
This is the beginning of what could be a long battle. ISIL has been preparing for this fight. It has fortified its positions and dug trenches around the city of Mosul. It can also use an estimated 1 million people inside Mosul as human shields.
This is a complex operation. The Iraqi government said there are extensive plans to protect the city and minimize casualties. But in an urban battlefield, that may not be easy. There is kilometers of ground to take before reaching Mosul's city center, ISIL's only urban stronghold in Iraq. Troops have to advance slowly because of IEDs and booby traps. ISIL tried to halt the advance on this front using a suicide car bomber. The attempt failed when Peshmerga forces destroyed his vehicle. For now, the target, at least in the northern front lines, is to recapture the outlying villages, areas that are not densely populated, areas where it is easy to clear ground using artillery and airstrikes. The fight for Mosul has brought together an unlikely alliance of forces, bitter rivals who have competing interests, but for now have a common enemy. Mosul, because of its ethnic and sectarian diversity, has long been known as Little Iraq, and it may be in Mosul where Iraq's viability as a nation-state will be tested. Zana Khuder, Al Jazeera.
More than 30,000 Somalis from Kenya's Dadaab refugee camp have returned to Somalia as part of an ongoing repatriation program. The scheme began in 2013, and the United Nations High Commission for Refugees has been under pressure.
These Somalis have recently returned to Kismayo in southern Somalia from Kenya's Dadaab refugee camp. Some of them have been away for more than a decade. Life was difficult in the Kenyan camps, but they say it's even worse here. Abdullahi Mohammed fled from a famine in 2011. Now that he's back, he's not sure where to begin.
I don't have money, I don't have food, I don't have a house. It's home, I'm glad, but I need to be able to afford things.
Just over 30,000 people have been repatriated to Somalia from Kenya in the last 3 years. 70,000 refugees have registered to return by next year. Most of them are coming to Kismayo.
Thousands of returnees are already here. The UNHCR gives them some startup money, basic supplies, and then they fend for themselves. Those we talk to say that they're trying as best they can under difficult circumstances to feel at home.
Those who can live in rental houses. Many who can't end up in displaced people's camps, joining tens of thousands of locals who had already fled from war and hunger in other parts of the south. I'll try to make a life here, but I need food for my children. I need them to go to school, this woman who came back in June with her 5 children tells us. Jubaland's state capital is relatively safe, but much of the countryside is still controlled by Al-Shabaab. State officials say they can provide land and security to the returnees, but they cannot sustain their livelihood.
Taking them from Kenya without a proper plan is painful. We want them back, but we don't want them just dumped here.
2 months ago, the local government refused to take in more returnees until basic conditions are met. After a meeting with a UNHCR high-level delegation, it was agreed that repatriation could resume as soon as possible.
There's anticipation, there is hope, but there's also reality. And therefore, we are trying to see how we can be able to make as comfortable as possible for them.
Many returnees here told us that starting over is tough, but they also said this is their home, and the only option they have is to try to survive. Catherine Soy, Al Jazeera, Kismayo, Southern Somalia.
And now for the weather. Present weather is fair. Temperatures will peak at 77 degrees Fahrenheit. Winds are calm from the east to southeast at 6 to 12 miles per hour and becoming lighter and variable mainly overnight. Seas are slight to moderate with heights up to 6 feet. Small craft operators and sea bathers are asked to exercise caution. Today will be sunny with a low chance of a few afternoon showers. Tonight will be fair. Sunset this evening will be at 5:48 p.m. and sunrise tomorrow will be at 6:04 a.m. That brings us to the end of the ZIZ Midday Newscast. Join us this evening for these stories and more in detail. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am Shaira Flanders. Have a good day.